Huge congratulations on what I think would be the toughest job in Colombia, and definitely one of the toughest jobs in literature to be screenwriters over 100 years of Solitude. Was there too much pressure? I mean, the greatest Colombian and his greatest book, was that too much pressure?
Yeah, of course. It's a tough job, but at the same time, it's an honor. And we have to say that we enjoy the process very much. Of course, knowing the responsibility that it takes, knowing that all the eyes of Gabriel García Márquez readers are on us right now, but very proud also to be part of this great project. Right. And I think we did it with love and responsibility and knowing that we had to do our best.
Marquez himself was very deeply associated with films all through his years, was also a film critic, worked in film production as well. Why do you think he said or did not want to make 100 Years of Solitude as a movie while he was alive? He never gave the rights. Why?
Because it's impossible to fit into a movie. I mean, even if you do a 10-hour movie, it's impossible to fit everything that happens. And we have said many times that if he had lived to the moment we are right now, I mean, platforms, the streaming, the technological advances in production, maybe his opinion would have been different. I think that what his family asked for in Netflix would have been the same things he would have asked for. That was, let's do it right. Let's put on the necessary resources to really produce something in a very high quality and production value. Let's do it in Spanish. Let's film it in Colombia with a team that is professional in it. And that wasn't going to happen when Gabo was alive. Not even accomplishing to put together a team that has had experience in in productions all over the world. Now we can have it made mainly by Colombians. And we did it in Spanish. We're filming in Colombia, in a beautiful town. So I think we would we honored what he was kind of...
Right. I mean, the thing is, when Marquez wrote, he had his dreams, he had his imagination, and dreams and imagination actually have no budget, right? But or no logistics involved, but movies do and series do. When you put the same thing on paper, are you thinking, hey, but this is going to cost money, or will we be able to pull this off? And do we need to become a little more practical in terms of what we can pull off from what's there in the book?
Well, I don't think we were thinking about the money, but
the logistics of it, the fact of creating. Yeah.
If the production team was able to do it, that was more the concern while we were writing. But because of that, because of the complexity of this production, we were always talking to the main team, with the directors and producers, art directors, to know and to understand what was possible to do, to create. And then we wrote something that was able to make. So I think our concern was trying to be faithful or true to the book, but also considering what was possible in terms of...
So are there other things in the book that you just could not write because it would be a logistical or a production nightmare to create it on the screen?
Not really, Maynak. I think what we left out because of dramatic reasons. Obviously this was a work of editing and understanding how do we tell the story in a series in 16 hours. And even in 16 hours, you have to leave stuff out. And in the active adaptation, you also are transforming and leaving things out, because we decided to approach the adaptation trying to tell the story from a point of view and themes that were important to us, like the violence that is portrayed in the novel that we think that is relevant right now in Colombia and all over the world. And what we left out was because it didn't fit those purposes. It wasn't telling that story, right? Or it wasn't a situation that had to do with the characters that we were trying to give the spotlight to, but not because it was impossible or difficult or too expensive in terms of production. And just to add to the answer that Nata gave you, even I have to say, when we thought small about something, the direction was to think otherwise, because us as Colombian screenwriters always have the other guidance, right? It's like, try not to think too big because, it's
smaller.
Think smaller. And in this production, every single time was like, think huge. This is the most important. I mean, it's not only the most important novel and adaptation that probably is going to be done, because nothing like Cien Años de Soledad has been written in Latin America, but also the most important, objective in the region in television production. So they said, think big, think huge, and we'll figure it out. And that was also very strange for us. It was like, we have never been in this situation before. So what do we do with it? How do we take advantage of it? And then obviously in the set, then you make the question again, is this important? But that wasn't something that we had to deal with directors and production team.
There is, of course, your series, and I've just begun to watch it and really, really, really enjoying it. Both of you, fantastic job with the script. But then there is the book, and with all its fans over, 50 plus years, 57 years now, actually. Do you want people to watch the series separate from the book, or is it important that the book or the series itself or your writing is very faithful to the original work?
We try to be very faithful to the book, but also, and of course, it's not possible to watch the series without having the book and Garcia Marquez and all what he represents in Colombia. It's not possible to forget that. So, but what we try was to create a series that somebody that never read the book and is not interested in the book and has no interest in knowing anything before watching the series is able to understand the story, is able to enjoy the story. And if we're lucky, then that person will go to the book. But we tried to make a series that was independent and that was strong enough as an audiovisual product to live without the book. And we know it's impossible not to have that, but that was we wanted.
Like, are you saying, and because there's a whole new generation and multiple generations since the book, somebody might watch the series and may want to read the book thereafter as well, because there'll be so many young kids who've probably not read 100 Years of Solitude. Would that make you happy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of our wishes on the bucket list. The novel is not a novel that is mandatory in schools in Colombia. I think as time passes, Gabriel García Márquez is very relevant as an author, but younger generations are interested in different things. And since it's such an amazing portrayal of Colombian history, what we have realized in reading it 1,000 times during this adaptation process is that it really does like an anthropological and an archaeology exercise on understanding what is our culture, what is our idiosyncrasy, what has happened to us because of war and violence, and it speaks to us in like it looks at us with such a sharp gaze that I think that it would be important and it would be lovely that younger generations, get a little of that from the series. And hopefully go and experience the book that, is such a joyful experience and such a shock when you really connect with it.
In terms of the rest of the world, I think the biggest series that came out of Colombia in term, I mean, by way of a setting was obviously Narcos. And, everyone in the world watched Narcos. And there is a connection with Marquez as well. Marquez also wrote about Escobar while he was alive as a journalist. This is very different. This is a completely different, it's magic realism. If I may ask you, because, magic realism is really, really big in Latin American literature. And the sense one gets is that Marquez's grandmother used to tell him a lot of stories that were magic realism, and that sort of became part of his body of work. As both of you as writers, and of course, both of you as Colombians, did you also grow up? Is that true, firstly, that all your grandmothers tell you a lot of magic realism stories, and that's why it shows up so much in Latin American literature?
It's not my case. I don't know Camila, because Camila has a part of her family is from the Caribbean. But
right.
In my case, it's not like that. But the grandmother of Garcia Marquez was from La Guajira, and La Guajira is a place in Colombia, in the north, with a very strong indigenous or native traditions, with this idea of life after death, with all these myths and mythical tales. And part of what Garcia Marquez tells in Cien Años de Soledad comes from that traditions and that culture. So for him, that was true. And for the Caribbean people, probably is true. That wasn't true for me, because I'm from Bogota, which is a very cold city, not very tropical. We are, as Camila said before, we're more like Fernanda del Carpio. But I believe that for many people in the Caribbean and in other areas from Colombia, that traditions are true, and they grew up with these tales and with paranormal or fantastic worlds very close to them. That's true for many people in Colombia. I don't know if Camila wants to talk about her Caribbean part of her family.
Well, yeah, it's a little different from me. My dad's part of the family is from the exact region that Gabriel García Márquez was born. And my grandfather had a similar life than Gabo. He was a journalist. And I didn't live that much with them. He died when my dad was really young. But I can see that tradition passing on from them and my grandmother to my dad, and the way my dad tells stories, it has that aspect a little bit. Also, I think that part of the world had an influence of migration very early on, and a very diverse migration. And if I have my grandfather, the journalist, was also a photographer of his trips. And when you see his photography, you can see these characters that would have been part of Macondo and 100 Years of Solitude. So I think probably it's true, as Natalia says, that the tales were true, and that's part of the Caribbean and the Colombian Caribbean.
Final question, ladies. This was obviously a very, very tough project for you, because the whole world is looking at what you were to do with this iconic novel of an iconic writer. What was the toughest thing about this entire exercise, according to you? What is the toughest thing about screenwriting 100 Years of Solitude?
As we always said, with this novel, everything is a challenge. Nothing is easy. Because it's a great novel, because it's a novel full of events, full of conflicts, full of themes and topics, and is so profound, but at the same time has this ironic Black humor. And there are so many aspects that we had to think and analyze and consider when we were trying to translate literary language into audiovisual language, that I think everything was hard. Everything was a process. Everything needed to be processed and rethink. And we were always asking ourselves why we're keeping this and why we're not doing that, and what we want to say with this situation. What is the arc of the story of this character in or the structure of this story in the series? So everything was hard, I guess, and nothing was left like I don't know,
como without a thought.
Exactly.
Well, fair enough. You can't pick up one particular thing where you were totally stuck, right? While you were changing the novel into a screenplay. Was there one thing that you were stuck with that you can remember?
No.
No. Okay. Fair enough. Thank you. Thank you very much. And congratulations, both of you. Fantastic job.
Thank
you very much.
Subscribe to Midday India. Get direct notifications on all our videos by clicking on the bell icon.